When I first heard the delightfully wild concept of Boyfriend Dungeon, I was keenly interested in the idea of playing a game that gives the dating sim formula a different kind of action. Hades-style isometric battles in which your weapons are also your love interests. The combat is entertaining enough while the enemy variety lasts, and Boyfriend Dungeon certainly has a cast of pleasantly designed characters, but it fails to offer much nuance in developing its relationships, and I often felt like I was falling into commitment rather than choosing it. Having to interact with an antagonist in an uncomfortably close way kills the mood too. In Boyfriend Dungeon, you assume the role of a person who's never been on a date before, searching for love in the traditional manner of your people, by dungeon crawling, and discovering people who can magically transform into a cool weapon that reflects their personality. Look, this guy's a saber.
Whoa. Well, hello, you two. Name's Sunder.
Wielding someone isn't inherently romantic, but these weapon people aren't hesitant about getting flirtatious. Things get weirder in the cute little beach town when weapon people start going missing. So naturally, you delve into the dungeons, or dunge as the cool kids call them, and you happen to find the missing weapons, and then of course, date them. There's a good range of weapon variety among the 7 romance candidates. Rowan, the scythe, creates a black hole, while Isaac, the S-Talk, has a parry ability. I appreciate that the weapons offer different movement speeds too. A dagger makes you nimble, but the scythe is heavy and slows you down a bit. Romance in Boyfriend Dungeon is exceptionally quick and easy. Just about everyone is into you the moment you rescue them, or at least develop some level of attraction on your first date. So already we're cutting right to the chase and skipping the introductory phase we see in most dating sims. It's more about who you want to reject, if anyone. This actually works to its detriment because there's not enough time to get to know a person before having to decide to engage romantically. I went along with being flirtatious with everyone at first, just because I was worried I'd miss something. Every weapon person has 6 levels of romance that you progress through by slaying enemies with them, and each has a corresponding date encounter. The first 3 levels seem to be where you have the option to sway most between choosing to date or not. Of course, since I didn't know this when I got started, I accidentally ended up juggling romantic involvements with 5 of the 7 weapon people and found myself locked into them. Going back to friendships wasn't a readily apparent option. I was especially unhappy knowing certain characters I liked probably wouldn't be cool with me making lifelong plans with others. There were never any consequences for those unfaithful actions, aside from my own dissatisfaction, which is also kind of a letdown. The weapon people's preferred kind of relationships, the quality of their stories, and their personalities vary greatly. Those who have more fantastical aspects to their lives, and I mean more than just weapon transforming magic, are some of the best told stories. On the other hand, there are a few underwhelming ones, too. One individual basically boiled down to being defined by their poorness, and inability to do much for themselves. Not into it. All of the stories could have used more consistent dialogue options for my character too. I felt like it was hard to maintain a role with the options given. Naturally, you can skip engaging with characters you don't like, but Boyfriend Dungeon's concept means that comes with extra consequences. You also skip growing them as a weapon. I had to sit through Sawyer's mildly frustrating story just to upgrade my glaive, which wasn't the best time. Speaking of bad times, Boyfriend Dungeon's antagonist is Eric. He's unabashedly rude, judgmental, and unfortunately, your first date. Given his not-so-winning personality, it's not unreasonable that regardless of how you choose to approach him, you'll only be able to treat him with disdain after a certain point. My first reaction was to ignore the jerk, and that worked for a bit. Only after completing 3 character paths did I realize that you can't actually bypass his creepiness. If you don't answer the text of an asshole, you don't get to finish the story. Yikes. Even worse, when I looked to the ending to have something to say about abusive stalker relationships beyond, they're bad, I only found more disappointment. It's a shame the dating structure and interactions with the antagonist bog down Boyfriend Dungeon, because there is actually a lot to like about it. The music everywhere is consistently great, for instance. The character designs are nicely diverse, gender inclusive, and of course, attractive. Their weapon abilities are fun to learn too. The combination of weapon varieties plus the random challenges of procedurally generated dungeon floors made me happy to return to them early on. That's good, because there are only about 12 or 13 floors depending on the dungeon, counting mini bosses on the way down. They're fun to get through, but it's a bummer there isn't at least one more dungeon to play, because the 2 dungeons get a little stale if you aim to complete everything Boyfriend Dungeon has to offer, like finding crafting recipes for zines that give you limited but helpful powers, gifts for your partners, or clothes that sometimes have bonuses. Recipe hunting was my main motivation toward the end, as I finished up the remaining character stories quickly before choosing to end the game by accepting a final battle. The weapon you beat the replayable final battle with sort of gets the last word with you, almost cementing them as your final choice. Almost. The messiness of dating everyone at once meant I didn't really feel all that close to anyone. If anything, I just felt a little guilty. Boyfriend Dungeon could have been a cool combat-heavy spin on the dating sim genre, but its uncomfortable, forced interactions with the villain, inconsistent quality and dialogue options, and limiting dating structure make it a disappointment. The fun weapons deserve more to cut and destroy, and we deserve more time to decide whether or not we want to jump into a romance, or dump it. For more action, be sure to check out a review of Assassin's Creed Valhalla's latest DLC and our Eldest Soul review. For everything else, keep it on IGN.